Welcome to Journeys into Enlightenment with Janet. Join Janet and her friends as they gather at the intersection of consciousness and self-experience, what being consciousness in human form is all about. Access heart-centered awareness with them and feel the difference in the moment that will last a lifetime.
Hello, and welcome to Journeys into Enlightenment with Janet. I'm your host, Janet Barrett, and I'm happy to have you join me here at the intersections of consciousness and self. Our time together here is about exploring the myriad of ways we can be in form and out of form. We do this by being present, by relaxing our sense of self-identity and easing into the language of our collective identity we call consciousness. All it takes is a shift in awareness. There. It is that easy. Feel that? We connect to our sense of consciousness through the field of the heart. I call it heart-centered awareness, as many do. It is the intangible in each of us, no matter what we call it. I use the word consciousness as there is not a lot of weight in definition or morphic field resonance present. If I call it God, or source, or spirit, or even cabbage, the word itself contains definitions and beliefs, and actually a lot of confusion of stuff that might not always be helpful. I look to present an experience of being present, without all the definition that can internally direct us in our daily lives. Being is free of judgment. What is it like to be present to the wonder of being? In this state, where time and space is senses and fluid, not fixed, what you will hear is free to resonate in new ways and stimulate new awareness immediately. You are free to hear something new. By being present, you will be open to what you are aware of in the moment in your listening, and that can lead to new rhythms to be heard and felt in your body, heart, and mind. Being celebrates life and is all about exploring the contrast to be found as both in-form and out-of-form states of awareness. There is no separateness, really, in what we call self and consciousness, just different perspectives in relation to one another. Our episode this time is how our bodies and minds and environments create inner music expressing. My guest, Bill Protzmann of Music Care Inc., will join me as we consider how we hear the sounds that enliven us. Sounds, voice, and music are everywhere. Humans are hardwired to rhythm and sound at our deepest physical levels. Bill and I and you will explore how consciousness and life are rhythms and how our inner music, heard in awareness, can help to transform the stuck in each of us. Our language is vibratory. Our bodies are vibrational in nature. I think we all pretty much know that these days. The dance of our photons of light and biomass and information expressed in our body is movement. It is our being in physical forms as resonators, generators, interpreters of life as ranges of these vibrational rhythms. I like this comment by Hazrat Inayat Khan, The Mysticism of Sound and Music, the Sufi teaching of Hazrat Inayat Khan. He says, there are two aspects of life. The first is that man is tuned by his surroundings, and the second is that man can tune himself in spite of his surroundings. Wishes can come true. I had been looking for someone who could enrich this podcast and share with us the dynamics of sound and how we relate as sensory beings. My guest, Bill Protzmann, came to me by way of LinkedIn. His energy is of a man who embodies both graciousness and kindness from within a fluid strength of self-worth. He cares deeply about life and has the energy to share it with others. He is the sort to take care of the wounded and leave no man, woman, or child behind, out of respect and appreciation, and because it is the right thing to do in his being. Any label of man for him would have to include essence, human, husband, father, warrior, writer, musician, and all around a very nice guy. He is tuned in to all the right stuff. He will tell you that he is a man on a mission to raise awareness of the power of music as self-care. In addition to being a successful IT entrepreneur, Bill holds magna cum laude degrees in both piano performance and creative writing, and has concertized and performed for many years with a focus on bringing music to audiences in non-traditional ways. In 2011, he launched Music Care, Inc., a for-profit corporation dedicated to teaching practical ways music can be used as psychological impact on humans. His work was recognized by the National Council for Behavioral Health with an Award of Excellence in 2014, the behavioral health equivalent of winning an Oscar. For his foundational work establishing music as self-care, he has received an Inspiring Hope Award of Excellence also. His volunteer work has included board positions with Guitars for Vets and the San Diego Veterans Coalition. He has been instrumental in connecting thousands of military service members and veterans with honor tickets to the largest healing musical organization in his town, the San Diego Symphony. You will find his first book at Amazon.com, More Than Human, The Value of Cultivating the Human Spirit in Your Organization. He has written articles that have been published and appeared on Fox News, Your Tango, The Good Man Project, Psychology Today, and PracticalHeartSkills.com. You will very much enjoy his energetic vibrations and appreciate what he shares with all of us in being. Oh, and thank you for joining me today, Bill. How are you doing?
I'm wonderful. This has been quite a day. We were just laughing, before everything got started. It's just such a great thing to be in joy for this.
Isn't it? Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's okay. That's our whole premise, that being able to hear is a joy, right? And all the things that come through our inner ear, our outer ear, and how they marry inside of us and bring us enlivening life. They enrich us so much. So that's our premise for this. So let's just take a moment to notice, everyone. Whatever has been happening, let's let that just drop away and just offer ourselves this moment in time together. There we go. Yeah, just go there. That's nice niece. I can hardly speak. I'm sorry. It's been quite a day myself. With just being present. And the truth is that there's so much information out among the cosmos that we connect to from within. And the ability to stop and let ourselves be as part of that flow of life and all its various sounds is registered in some way. And so we're going to focus our attention to that this episode with Bill and just really explore how in his awareness sounds and music trigger and reach those deep emotional places within us, and what the power is in being able to use music to maybe access information that's locked up and have a new experience of it. So just breathe. And what are you noticing, Bill, in this moment?
I was just thinking about content here and how our space right now is very internal, and that we might be talking more about the kind of music that we each make within our own selves versus the kind of music that we invite in from external sources.
Oh, a great awareness. Thank
Like the
you.
breath, you
Yeah.
made this beautiful breath, and we could talk
Uh-huh.
about that and the sounds of our voice and how we receive those sounds. And there's just such a marvelous thing to think about our internal music as we approach this conversation.
Yeah. So everyone, notice your internal music. And give us some references for that, Bill. What are you tracking? Heartbeat, breath?
Oh,
What are
sure.
some of those elements?
Yeah, so I think the heartbeat, you can hear that.
Hmm.
There's also this aspect of the breath, like the unimpeded breath that you just take in through your nose and out through your mouth. And then I was thinking as you were speaking of my early yoga training, and the
Mm,
teacher taught us the ujjayi breath, which is it's a breath that you make with a roaring noise in the back of your throat. So if you inhale through your nose and become conscious of how your tongue kind of arches toward the back of your mouth to constrict the airflow and make this beautiful roaring sound. I'll try to do it through the microphone. Don't know if it'll work. Let's try. Were you able to hear the difference between that and just the inhale of one's
yeah,
more
if
of an
those were two inhales, that was very different. Yes.
yeah, so the first one is the ujjayi breath, where you make that
Mhm.
roaring sound in your throat. So there are monks who breathe this breath intentionally, and it's said to be very healing.
Mm,
Even a physical ailments, all kinds of things. The ujjayi breath is supposed to be able to mind us in that way, physically,
mm,
mentally, emotionally, even spiritually. And it's a beautiful intentional breath that you can bring to any practice, actually. I try to do it in yoga, of course, or meditation, or um, even if I can maintain it, when I'm doing intentional work at my desk,
mhm,
or at the
mhm,
piano or some other place or driving. It's a great
mhm.
practice. So
I
I feel like heartbeat and breath are the two places to begin.
And then one of my guests, Caitlin, earlier, she used the term, well, breathe through your heart. And I was like,
Mm.
oh, wonderful, right? Because we're all about separateness all the time. And I direct people, notice your breath, notice your heart. They're beating in this, they are both happening, actions happening at the same time. And she had a lovely way of consolidating that, marrying it back together, that the heartbeat is the breath, right? It is the inhalation, the exhalation. It's the opening and the closing and the exchange that takes place. And it's a very nice way to orient, I think. So,
Yes, the whole the part of us that beats our heart and breathes through our
mhm,
lungs and takes care of all of those things we don't think about is
mhm.
such a marvelous part of who we are, and it does its job so well. We tend to forget that it's there sometimes.
Yeah, it's
But
usually best if we do.
yeah, it really is. I mean, I can't do the same kind of job breathing that my what is it, the autonomic nervous system does.
Yes, you're out enough.
But I love the fact that that whole thing is described in terms of meridians and chakras, and there's lots of what I want to say is esoteric knowledge. But you and I know that it's not esoteric; it's just not
Right.
known widely. But
Yeah.
all of this wonderful, um, non-linear, non-scientific,
Mhm,
ancient wisdom is contained within the part of the body that we don't visit very often until
mhm.
we bring our focus to it through ujjayi breath or through
Or
like
through
actually feeling your pulse or
or
you
some
know
challenge, right?
or a challenge. Oh, of course.
A
Yeah.
challenge, then you're immediately aware of what's missing, right? The ease
Uh-huh.
in your expression. And that's often how people take being in their circumstances for granted.
Yeah.
They don't hear things. They don't because it's not registering. They're not open anymore to hearing and noticing with awareness. And, the sounds that a first responder hears is probably different from the guy who's having to need the first responder, right? There,
Yes. Yes.
our orientations are different. And you're inviting us, and everyone, please just notice that there is an ease to being. There is a naturalness to being. in a form. And Bill's articulating and bringing into awareness for us of how we make it an effort unconsciously so often, and we're in resistance to a system that's already in place that is doing just fine, thank you. And in my own history and experience of bodies, it's how we create all this resistance unintentionally, but it's different when you're not open to hearing what each is saying. So it's all about exchange of information.
There's so much buried in there that is enlivening once you check into it. And golly, from the moment we're born, we begin to be taught how to check out of it. So that somewhere along in life, we seek out teachers and healers and stuff to reconnect us to what we knew in the first place.
Exactly.
Life is cyclical,
got a problem with that?
Oh, not at all. It's just contrast.
It's just contrast. Thank you very much.
So what we want,
right?
Here we are. We're yakking and talking and laughing and having a great old time. But I think based on where we are, we should ask our listeners permission to touch their eardrums.
Whoa. Okay. Well, I'm always in the mindset if you turned into this channel, permission is implicit in it. So everyone pay attention. And Bill is noticing you, all right, in a different way than I'm noticing you. And he's inviting you, once again, to what it would be like to be touched.
This whole idea of sound is just, it's so beautiful in that way. It's the only way that we can touch one another without a cultural taboo, if you will.
Yeah. Okay.
Our voice is such an important way of offering an invitation. And what we do with the sounds that we make can either be very off-putting or can be quite inviting. And becoming conscious of the effect that your sound has on people who can hear you, that's a huge part of this awareness. Some people like to call this a somatic awareness. Become aware of your breathing and your heartbeat and the sounds that you hear. And then you go to touch and taste and scent. But let's just stay with sound for a moment, because that's where we can all connect on this podcast in some way.
Right.
I recognize it's kind of a one-way street from us to you, but here we are.
Yeah, no, for me it's not, because I'm tracking that most of the time, usually in some shape or form or another. I think what you're also bringing into play, Bill, is how there is a sound and we decide how we hear it. That in the voice or whatever the resonance might be that's hitting our wonderful eardrums, is that we're already into interpretation through our biases and our story, and how someone can say something and it's impacting us. They're in a totally unaware state of it because they're not in our reference to it. Right?
Correct. Yes.
And this is where a lot of where we go, because this is always operating in us. And we are often so triggered as we get older into states of when we were younger, because something matches a resonance that opens it up and you go, I don't like that, right? And something gets engaged when it's totally not the intention of anyone. But I think so often this is a way we have memorized. We memorize through our hearing.
Yes, we habituate or something.
Yeah.
So if I heard a sound, and it was somebody's voice, I would immediately recognize that voice if it was someone I know. Imagine just for a moment what it takes to do that. Inside yourself, you have the memory of thousands of sounds that you've heard, and maybe millions of sounds, and then you have these thousands of voices, maybe tens of thousands of voices. But if your mother was to say hello to you right now, you would instantly know her voice.
Yeah. For good, bad, whatever. You would just recognize.
For whatever you'd know.
Right.
And we know other sounds too. So even like, a little tiny baby who's learning to talk, it turns out that the word mama is like this universal word in every language around the world. It's like, that's just what the sounds are that human infants make when they see their mother. And nobody teaches you that. You just sort of, mama, you just get it.
It's part of that bonding chemistry, probably.
It's like,
right?
Our first sounds are because of our first love. It's that. It's
and
that.
That's why that's the resonance of the heartbeat, because you're in that embiotic fluid, listening to that heartbeat,
to it,
feeling the heartbeat. Right? You're right there. There's no way to be separate from mother at that point. You're in this experience. Yeah. Go ahead.
The point here is that our sounds that we make come from our feelings, or from our emotion. That first word is like the name of what it's been like to be in the womb 9 months, and to be born, and to come to a place where your mouth can form sounds, and then to be able to finally say her name. That's a function of all the sounds that have been minding you since the moment that you were conceived. It's a fascinating thing. It's just fascinating.
Okay, everybody notice this. Just what you're noticing about mother and you. And just be present. So we are going to hear with our inner ear this whole experience. We always do anyway. And we're just focused to this attention this time around. And we're inviting all of us to just be in awareness of how we experience information in a physical form, and the blessing in being able to connect through how we hear. Because this is the emotions that get triggered or fostered, or we'll get into all that, and how that takes us someplace, how we communicate, how the words mean something, the feeling means something, how it all comes together. And this is in the moment, in being present, how this unfolds in each of us. So just notice in this moment, what seems quiet is full of information, and how you're registering it. And this is the beauty of being in a form. Good job, Bill.
Oh, thank you.
Tell us more.
Thank you for filling this forward. So it turns out that the science on hearing is that hearing is so closly connected to our lizard brain, the amygdala, the part of us that's ancient, that responds to stimuli more quickly than anything else in our human system. That part of us,
or as quickly as smell, because that's all both the same seems.
Well, the sound has a protective smell does too, but so I haven't seen a study that measures the response to smell this way, but when you hear something, your physiology is already responding to that sound before, like,
it really encompasses it, huh?
Well, yeah, before you think about it. So it takes 10 times longer for us to think about what we heard and do something about it than it does for us to respond. The response is virtually instantaneous. So that you hear a loud sound and adrenaline is in your system before you even can think about what the sound was or what made it. So relatively speaking, we're pretty slow to
interpret,
take action, when we hear something. And our bodies are very quick to prime us for whatever that action might be. So if it's a danger sound, like the tiger roaring in the jungle, right? We're already prepared to run away or to fight that tiger before we recognize that it was a tiger.
So what you're describing is how slow the processing system of mind, because of where it's focused and its intention at the time, but the sound wave, the vibration that we're already in rhythm to, is resonating and registering on a level that the mind is trying to catch up to, that the
There you go.
brain is late to the party with, right?
There you go.
And
Yeah.
and we're in these different relations because circumstances, environment, whatever it might be, is taking focus elsewhere, but underneath these sounds are resonating through our systems.
They
So,
are.
yes, okay. So everybody pay attention.
That first word, that mama, think
Uh-huh.
about how your heart beats. Can you hear the heartbeat rhythm? Mama, mama,
Oh,
mama.
right. Okay. Yeah.
So
And
maybe, I don't know
Papa
the
isn't
science.
the same, is it?
Papa, papa, papa.
Can be. Can be.
The rhythm of the word, the pulse of the word is the same as the pulse of the heart.
Yeah. Okay.
This is basic connection. I mean,
Right.
we have to go back and think about it later, but those things are like the way where
Bedrocks.
we give that sound back, you
Uh-huh.
know, and share that sound with our parents or
Yeah.
with anyone who's around. I mean,
Right.
I have a grandson. He doesn't mind who's in the room. He's going to talk.
Right.
And it's such a beautiful thing. So where was I going with that? Okay. So, animals and whatever don't verbalize the way we do. Some people believe, I heard a very interesting synopsis of how sperm whales manage to communicate and think and problem solve, and raccoons are amazing problems. But somewhere down inside, before all that figuring it out stuff, all of us are going to hear sounds that we identify as dangerous in the same way. Something that scares me is going to scare my cat. Now, the cat's going to go running off, and I'm going to go, oh, well, that was just a car backfiring. Right? But at that moment where the sound happens, I am as present to that sound as my cat or anybody else that happens to be listening. This when the sounds hits us, sound unifies us at this emotional level. Now we do different things with emotions, but the sound that scared the cat makes me jump a little and wonder what it was. But at that moment of the sound, we're the same. Way before
I think it's
conscious the same.
Yeah, it's where the resonance hits, right? It's
There
where
you go.
that vibration is twitching at us, tinging
Yes.
us away,
Yes.
so and our interpretation is, oh, I'm going to feel that as an emotion and it's going to be this kind, and I can see it reflective and showing up around me, whether it's the cat or another person, or something falls off the counter, in the resonating wave of it, and you are so instantly, and these are all the degrees of instant that show up. we mark time very differently. You know how time can expand in some moments with adrenaline and stress and these responses, and then we realize we're hearing on all these different levels, and we have no sense of all those levels. We just know this, right?
Yeah.
And we've lost the ability, or we don't have the need anymore, or the skill set, the sensitivity to recognize that there were all these places that something happened, that you could have felt the wave. When Ilarion, our guest, talks about being age 6 in a boat fishing for halibut, and he gave a 5-minute description of all the things he was aware of about that fish in relation to him and the bait, and your jaw dropped. So it is there to explore and tag if you're present to it, right? If you're willing to be present to it. So.
And that's why the point of all this conversation. So lots of sounds that we hear all the time, we ignore. They reach into our autonomic nervous system and other parts of us. They have an effect on us, but we don't consciously hear them. I think we'd go into overdrive if we were consciously able to hear a lot of that. But the research, and you've seen some of these studies, how being in the forest is such a healthy thing. Well, there's less noise there, and the noise that's there is it's very helpful, healing in training sounds that you hear in the forest. Unlike what you hear in a busy city, you're able to relax in that place because your mind isn't working so hard to block off all the stuff that's touching your eardrums. And the objective here, if there is one, is to help us focus in on the sounds that we want to hear that can help us. And a lot of those sounds are sounds that are in our background all the time. There's lots of music playing all the time, of course. And if we brought that up to the foreground and really began to pay attention to it, and by that I mean by allowing an awareness of what's happening with our heartbeat and our breath and the other parts of us that mind themselves, but that we can tune into, then music becomes even more powerful than we like to say it is. Everybody says music is powerful, right? The power of music. Well, what about if you brought your focus to it? What kind of power would exist in it for you if you did that? And I ask this question all the time because one of the cats likes to come and sit by the piano when I practice. What's up with that? I can't explain that, and certainly the cat can't. But there's something, the cat's become aware of something on some level, and craves that thing. That those sounds are important to that little creature, and when she hears them, she connects to them and wants to be in the space and be a part of the experience. In some cat
Is she
way,
partial to certain tunes as opposed to others?
No, she seems to be pretty forgiving. I can be playing scales or something complicated, and she still shows up.
So what she's getting is the clear resonance, right?
I think so, yeah.
So often animals are, especially cats have a tendency to curl up on us and be on us and be in that, feel that breath. I mean, cats are marvelous that way. They'll just eat your breath, they're just hanging in there. Yeah. So the clarity that any piano is going to have is such an invitation to be present. And see, I think animals are present in a way that we're frequently not. So
they don't have the encumbrance of the analytic mind.
Who's going, no, I don't like that kind of music. Well, I think what it probably comes down to is our sensitivity to certain sounds over another, right? That we have these associations that we've made where this triggers a certain emotion to hear that kind of note or that song. We don't want to go there, or we really like it. I mean, there's this interaction that's taking place, I think, that we don't always appreciate. But I know certainly in your work you're focusing on.
Well, it is transactional. When you speak to somebody, if it's over the phone or in person, you can just hear from the sound of their voice whether you're in sync or not. And you must do this work on many different levels. I'm conscious of it with sound, and I'll know right away if I'm going to continue the conversation or if I'll make a polite reason to end it more quickly.
Okay.
Just because of the sound of the voice. I'll give you an example of that. It's kind of off the track, but not really. So
all roads lead to Rome, so it's all part of it.
They all do.
Yes.
I have this wonderful job of being a guest on podcasts like yours, and so I listen to a lot of podcasts, and I have to listen to them. I've taught myself to listen to them at like 2 times speed so that I can get the content, and I've discovered something about that. There's a quality to the voice of podcasters and guests that says more than the content, than what they actually have to convey.
Oh, totally. Yes.
The quality is like it's sound, it's timbre, it's rhythm, it's speech patterns. And I can tell, even on the simplest level, from the speech patterns of a podcast guest, whether it's somebody I want to hear or not. Now, that's not a judgment. It's just, does this resonate with me or not? And it's that same thing you get when you introduce to someone for the first time. Oh, well, okay, Bill and I, we kind of sync up. That's fine. Or you might meet somebody else, and it wouldn't be that way. Right. That's fine. That's good information to have. because you can waste a lot of time, which we don't have, right? Or you can find a teacher or an inspirational person. You can just hear. And I was talking about this with a friend, and we both agreed that the voice of, say, Dr. Wayne Dyer. There's a good one. We can talk about Dr. Wayne. Wayne Dyer has this amazing ability to include people in his spoken touch. Isn't that a weird way of saying it? But his touch is very beautiful. His vocal touch is very beautiful and inviting.
Right. Right.
And at least for me and for my buddy. And then we talked about others that weren't. And I'm thinking off the top of my head. So Tony Robbins is inspirational, but his voice is a little bit difficult to take.
Yes, I get what you're talking about. Yeah.
And that doesn't mean he's wrong or bad or anything like that.
And it just doesn't take anything away from his quality of what he presents or anything like that. Right. Right.
And I think that what this points out more than anything else, Janet, is that all of us, all 7.5 billion of us, or however many we are these days, we have 7.5 billion different ways of listening.
Yeah.
And that to find anyone who comes close to you when you hear that voice is just such a gift.
Well, and I think it's also what speaks to expressing from being present in our essence, right? You get past the chaoticness of self and you look for how the words are encoded, encapsulated information, yes, and also what is present at the same time. And you register, we all do this, and that's part of that resonance feeling. When there's a congruency to where we already are, we say, oh, we like that resonance. When there's not, when there's a little off somewhere and we are not necessarily aware where that is, we're going to say, oh, that doesn't hit me right, I'm not going to listen. When it's really maybe a matter of educating the whatever is sensing information and going, well, if I was to match that resonance, which is what I do in my work, in being that it's all one, in matching resonances, that is being able to be heard and to hear at the same time. Right?
Correct, yeah.
There's not a loss of self. What there's a loss of self-image. There is present the oneness, the level of where it's all resonances, and we let go of the self, right? And you're really addressing that very well, beautifully. Thank you, Bill, about how we do hear, what we hear, when we hear it, and what do we think about it, right? And that's all happening in this moment, right? All at once.
Yeah, it is. So my work to bring this into that beautiful part of the conversation. So my work takes place in helping people recognize the delay, if you will, between what you hear and how you respond. Mm-hmm. Because as we've just talked about here, so both of us really love the content of what Tony Robbins says, but I have some trouble with his voice. I wish he had a different kind of
It has a little harshness to my ear, but that's just
it doesn't it? Yes.
Right.
But you can still hear, you can choose to hear that and take in the information deeply while still having, you can let the voice grate on you a little bit.
Right.
And that's a great paradox, because there you are with a voice that doesn't touch your eardrum the way you want it to, but with content that is marvelous. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that's a nice sort of a metaphor for what you can do if you hear something, for example, that makes you angry or sad. Anger being adrenaline thing, and sadness being more of a
training thing.
but yeah, different quality.
Yeah.
And you can hear that adrenaline boosting thing as either a call to fight, flight, or freeze.
Action, yeah.
And you don't have to take any of those actions, but if you recognize that sound is there to give you 3 options, and that you can take some time and choose which one of those options is the most appropriate given all the circumstances, just knowing that you have that time to make that decision is powerful.
So what you're describing and articulating is the difference between a triggered response reaction, a triggered reaction that gets into place. It's an automatic, but go there. There's 0 to 1,000 in the blink of an eye, as opposed to the response, which is where you stop the trigger. You stop the reaction and you notice, and you experience all the different levels of awareness that you're describing, and then you choose how you react, how you respond.
Right.
And
You don't have to
power.
run away like the cat. You can
No.
sit there for a sec and say,
Right.
"Oh, that was a car backfiring. I'm totally
Right.
safe."
Right. Now, in those life and death situations, yeah, it all compresses, and
it does. Oh, yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Having to unlearn something where you've had no other choice, like the combat soldier who's triggered by, sound of gunfire, having to unlearn that, well, it's possible, and it's equally possible to teach yourself how to respond at an emotional level with just allowing the experience of the emotion separate from the expression or the response or the reaction. And you can do that with music. So we'll stay with the scary and angry stuff for a moment. There's lots of music out there that can make you angry or fearful. Playing with that music to find out what creates the strongest emotional response in you is a great way of beginning to teach yourself how to make space before you act on that feeling.
So a couple of things come to mind, Bill, because this is the meat of what your work is with music here, et cetera, and it's just marvelous and how effective it is. A couple of things come to mind, and let me just grab them here.
Yeah.
Where'd they go? Oh, what I caught was all the different ways we hear. Where we hear it here, where we hear it there, what the medium is, what the organ hears of the heart, what the organ of the liver hears. I had this beautiful awareness that we think hearing goes in the ear, but our bodies are one big ear. We're feeling those sound waves. It doesn't just hit the ear. That's a specialized mechanism and all that brings. But everything in us has an ear and is going to respond. And when we talk about emotions and where they are and what kind they are, we can feel if we're paying attention and open to the information. So everybody notice this, the opening to experience where what you hear is affecting what it is. All right. And how it's defining. And Bill's breaking down for us in a wonderful way about how we take it in and where it routes itself to in that quicker than a blink of an eye, because it's already happened before it registers, all right, on some level. And so this is our invitation to just be present here and not be attached to what might show up in the next few moments. So, all right, I hope I haven't taken you off track too much.
No, you gave me a great opportunity to respond. You're so right about this. If you're listening right now, we can only touch your eardrums, but if you were in the room, sitting with me and with Janet, our conversation would be, you'd be able to hear it through more than just your ears. We're resonators. All of our cells in our body respond. They all vibrate. They all respond to vibration. And wouldn't it be great if all of the cells that make up our human bodies were responding in the same way?
They're all holding different tones, right? We know this when we do this kind of work, right? Yeah, very
nice. So the game, like I went to a concert once that I digress for a second, but it was an electronic dance music concert by a band called Owl City, and they're amazing. And I, being a musician, I brought my pro earplugs and I put them in to cut some of the dB level down. Now, here's the thing. The concert was so loud that I could feel all my internal organs jumping around.
Okay, that's
It
loud.
it was loud. I mean, it wasn't. I have great respect for people with no ear protection, but if you do go to a concert like that, please wear some ear protection, because you don't want to damage your eardrums.
Yeah.
But I could hear just fine, thank you, with my like minus whatever 85 decibel earplugs in. I could still hear plenty fine, but I was feeling it, right? I could feel it.
So you were the
Now,
tuning fork at that. Geez.
I felt like the bass drum. Every time that kick drum would hit, I could feel, and it was not just like that cellular level vibration. It was like boom, and I'd feel like my guts just jumping inside every time the kick drum would hit. It was wonderful. And not being able to escape and wanting very much to be there with my family. We were all there. I just went with it and allowed it, and what an incredible experience. I mean, to have an internal organ massage, find a band that plays EDM and use ear protection and go, and you will never feel that kind of feeling any other way. I really don't think so. Opening yourself up to that kind of sonic workout is so amazing, and letting your entire system feel, that's so amazing. It's like being in an ocean and being tossed around with rhythm like a dance.
Well, I have a feeling you've tapped into maybe what the hearing impaired.
Oh, yes, it's true. So there's a percussionist who plays, she's completely deaf, and you can see video. She plays by sensing the vibration of the stage in her feet. She's that in tune with it. Right. And there's a marvelous video somewhere of a guy who's totally blind and navigates on his bicycle through traffic using his ears.
Oh my gosh!
It's amazing what our senses can do.
Well, you're describing and tapping into what I consider magic, right? It's the unseen forces that are at play that we don't hold in awareness, and we can just appreciate from this place. Yeah. And I think when we get tied up in the identity of investment of seeing, hearing, being, whatever those are, and we have sensory deprivation of some sort that happens through some reason, and then we feel the loss, and we're in the loss relationship, and we're forgetting, or we haven't really encompassed yet how definitely we know in the mind, if there's an injury one place, the other parts of the lobes will start to activate.
Yes.
And help support that.
Plasticity, or neuroplasticity, they call it in the brain.
Totally. And so what we're noticing and commenting on is the different ways a system, which is what a human form is. It's a system, an alignment of principles that are actively, dynamically working all at the same time. Step in, and how energy shows up in that heart, in that breath, how that's activating all and reflecting, because I guarantee that your heartbeat is reflecting the energy around you. I know that.
It has to.
Right? It has to. It cannot be separate. And so that so much of what we come into disease process with is the imbalance and the difference of trying to mitigate our own rhythm in all these other rhythms, and the stress that takes. And the stressors can be emotions, it can be, whatever. There's such a variety of things that can trigger in our field, and that this is just a wonderful exploration into fields that we don't always consider until we've had something to compromise our feeling of it. And and so, this is just so lovely. Okay, so where are we going? All right.
Well, I'll let you set the next direction.
No, I want you to finish what this was about. This is great. I don't want to sacrifice it at all. So let's see how this all goes back to that. Go for it.
That somewhat dramatic, internal organ shaking thing that I felt at Owl City, it is over the top, and it is big. And it doesn't have to be that big. I mean, tuning into your breath, tuning in your heartbeat is just about the same practice your focus goes a different way. I mean, in a very loud environment, the sound will grab you and move you. But in a quiet environment where we're talking like this, it takes intention and focus to sort of let the external things go and become conscious of your breath, become conscious of your heartbeat. Or if you're listening to music through headphones, bring your focus to the music that's happening with some kind of intent versus just letting it play in the background. Nothing wrong with background music, by the way. That it's working fine there too. But if you connect with it, connect your thinking present self with that part of you that's already responding to sound and rhythm, that just completes the circle and gives you a kind of power that you've never even dreamed existed before.
So in the opening that happens, right? The unfolding that happens in tagging the sound and then the emotion, and where do we go with that then?
Well, so this becomes useful when you find yourself triggered. So I grew up as a pretty depressed kid, and I learned later on in therapy, much later in therapy, that I was depressed because I didn't have anywhere to send my anger. I was keeping all this anger inside. And I had this huge well of anger, and you can't keep anger inside for very long without it leaking out in some way. And so mine leaked out as depression. And, talk about being a maudlin teenager. That was me. But I realized somewhere along in life that at the piano, I could bring all these feelings that were stuck inside me, and I could kind of let them loose. I could find music that let me play angry. I could find music that let me play sad. And the process of playing that music was like the process of opening the lid on that container a little bit and letting some of the sadness come out as power to help energize the music, or opening the container on anger a little bit, letting some of the anger come out and energize the music in a way that made it authentic, made it convincing. I mean, so look, I've got to sit at the piano and I play a key. It's a percussion instrument, for heaven's sakes, and it just goes bang. And I have to make that bang either able to say anger or say sad. It's the same mechanical stuff is there. So what do I have to do? The only thing I can change when I hit that note, Janet, the only thing I can change is how I touch it. And the way that I touch that note gives the quality of the emotion to the sound. And if you hear the note that I play as sad or as angry, I've done my job. But unless you hear that note as sad or angry, I'm not doing my job. You see how important that is? So I really need to be able to touch the piano in the same way that I want the sound to touch your ears, your eardrums. And if I fail, the performance won't be authentic. In some ways, it may just be very dry. And, I'll lose people without even trying to connect with them. But this is not something that's unique to piano players. If you put on a piece of music right now, just think of Hey Jude by the Beatles. How about that? A song most people know, Hey Jude. And if you don't see Yesterday, because it's an amazing movie, they tell me I have to see it, but you'll understand. So Hey Jude. So there's a quality to Hey Jude that's pretty universally understood in the same way. Now, I'm not going to go into what that is or anything because you may have a different, but there's a lot of people that appreciate that song in the same way. Now, if someone other than the Beatles were to cover that song, you'd probably realize pretty quickly that it wasn't the Beatles. And why is that? It could be a tiny difference in the quality of the way the sounds were made or the words were sung, but you'd know that it was some other band doing it. You could find a metal band to play Hey Jude. You get a completely different reading. Singer-songwriter by themselves on stage singing Hey Jude, completely different reading than the iconic recording that we all know of the Beatles. All of those things are valid emotional sounds, and all of them are made with intention. How do you use that information to notice the quality of a sound and its effect on you? because if you need Hey Jude as sort of as a sad song to mind you during a moment of great sadness, that's a completely different reason for needing Hey Jude than if you are a metal band using it as part of your show and you want the people out there to kind of light up around this crazy thing that you're doing with this iconic music. It's two different things,
right?
Two different emotions. And we get that. I mean, human beings, we're built to get that. You don't even have to work on this. You will get it. But the thing that you do need to work on is your awareness. How are you aware of the sound? What is the quality of it? How is it different from how you may have experienced that song before? And then, most importantly, how can you use the sad, let's say, version of Hey Jude to give you this opportunity to release the sadness that's blocked or stuck inside you, or that you just want to feel because it's necessary sometimes to cry? And building a practice around using that music that way is a very helpful thing. You could also build a practice around the crazy metal band, the hypothetical metal band that's recorded Hey Jude, as a scream metal kind of a thing. And people tell me that love scream metal that it makes them very joyous. Well, maybe you'd hear a joyous expression of Hey Jude if you listen to your favorite scream metal band.
Yeah.
Great, fantastic, awesome. That sound makes you happy. Go for it. It's the same music, but the way that the musicians touched you was so much different between the two. And you can use that. If happiness is what you need, and the scream metal version of Hey Jude is going to make you happy, play that. Let that happiness come up as big as it can be, and just be with that. That's the point here.
Well, you
Pay
bring
attention to
up
that quality touch.
Yeah, you bring up so many different things that could be articulated. I could track for that, and I'm just cognizant of time here. And so we expanded time, and so everyone, right? We're all in this together. You hear the same words coming out, and you hear it unique to you, which is what he just so charmingly described. So whatever we are saying is registering uniquely to you. Some of it you will hear, some of it won't. And that's okay. That's why I always tell you to listen to these episodes more than once, because our focus goes different places. Our intention is taking us different places. Our context takes us different places, puts us in different areas. And what just comes to mind is in the example of Hey Jude, a wonderful anthem, right? And how when I was younger and in my teen years, because I'm probably a little older than you, everybody was so offended when Muzak took Hey Jude in any kind of, youth anthem and put it into Muzak terms, of where it all just became background music. And these were anthems. These were things to stir us and to feel anger, to feel whatever emotion, sadness, or collective, we're all in this together, I think is what really that anthem is about for me. And here they reduced it to elevator music. And it was with intention to make it normalized for everybody. And if you were aware enough to pick out, oh my goodness, that's Hey Jude, or if you were like, I didn't hear anything, there's all these variables in between. So thank you for articulating so well how we experience, and this sounds Enliven Us, and what we can do with it and where we can go with any of this. So anything you'd like to leave people with as a final encore?
Good point. So I've gotten really comfortable in my life, Janet, with unexpected change and chaos and craziness and even this amazing sort of bifurcation of society that we experience in the Western world. And it doesn't mean that I'm okay with it. It just means that I'm becoming more accepting.
Mm-hmm.
And why? Well, because change is sort of a constant. So if we're going to live in the world of today, how do we sustain ourselves through that change?
Mm-hmm.
And for me, music helps so much.
Yes, yeah, right.
You know, there's so much stimulus in the world to things that I don't really want to be stimulated by, but the feelings that I get from them, I can always take to some piece of music or another and allow them to play within me until they wash through. You know, they sort of release the charge from them. And you know, the marvelous thing about doing that is that when you face change openly and you allow the emotions to flow, the emotions flow through, but they leave energy behind. And it's energy you can use for good. It doesn't matter if the emotion was, quote, negative, like fear or anger. It doesn't matter. If you allow the emotion to move, and music will do that, you're left with this amazing energy. It's boundless. So sustain change by turning up your music, I guess, if there's any sort of tagline I could give you. Sustain change, turn up your music. How's that?
I love it. And I'm going to offer you something as an encore here, is that I cannot imagine you connecting to your piano and not moving any of us. Your heart, your energies, your presence, your internalizing of information is always present in everything we each do, Bill. And that we are not responsible for how others interpret. Got to give that one up. And all we can do is present. And if we are in our flow, and if we are in our essence, and we know that all we're ever doing is planting seeds, and we're lucky if they spring up, right? And I can't be, I can do everything I can to foster that seed growing, but it's up to the seed. So I just want to offer that to you. I would love to hear you play anytime, anywhere. And the trick might be that you're triggering other emotions than what you're thinking you're going to trigger.
Oh, of course. Yeah, I agree with you about that.
Yeah.
You can govern the quality of what you do, but other people's
interpretation,
acceptance, or interpretation, or understanding, it'd be totally different. You know, like 7.5 billion of us are going to. But thank you for your kind words. I've been at it a long time, and I hope I make good sounds. You can hear me on Spotify and iTunes and whatever, SoundCloud. Just poke around. I'm out there, and all the music these days is basically free, and I'd prefer that you heard it.
Thank you so very much for joining.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you so very much, Bill. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Janet.
Like my other guests, Bill is a total commitment to helping others experience the gift that life is. His way is through vibration and resonances and social consciousness. His influences and interests are broad. His is a Renaissance mind of information. For a complete list of what his work encompasses and those who have helped shape his work, please use his link, quest.musiccare.net. I can tell you, he finds resonance of spirit, thought, and feeling in the great wisdoms of the ages from the Stoics, such as Epictetus, and traditions carried on by today's world leaders, such as His Holiness the 13th Dalai Lama and Archbishop Desmond Tutu. He is indebted to poets David White and Rainier Maria Rilke, psychologist Robert A. Johnson, mythologist Joseph Campbell, Christian mystics John O'Donohue and Brother Steindl Rast, philosopher Parker J. Palmer, and visionary thinker and life skills practitioner Michael A. Singer. He enjoys kayaking, windsurfing, mountain biking, swimming, yoga, and the breath, and all the connections to the brain and mind in scientific explorations of consciousness and emotion, quantum gravity, and neuroplasticity, and modalities like EFT, TFT, and TRE, trauma release exercise. And, of course, music of all kinds, genres, nationalities, and styles. I picked a selection of quotes to reflect Bill's sensibilities. There are some great quotes you can find at www.delamora.life.com. On the website page for this episode, you'll see the exact link there. So we have each celestial body, in fact, each and every atom, produces a particular sound on account of its movement, its rhythm, or vibration. All these sounds and vibrations form a universal harmony in which each element, while having its own function and character, contributes to the whole. That's Pythagoras in 1569 to 475 BC. That's old knowledge, guys. And here, what makes us drawn to music is that our whole being is music, our mind and body, the nature in which we live, the nature which has made us, all that is beneath and around us. It is all music. Hazlitt and not Kahn. And he was in 1882 to 1927. And here, music can minister to minds diseased, pluck from the memory a rooted sorrow, raise out the written troubles of the brain, and with its sweet oblivious antidote, cleanse the full bosom of all perilous stuff that weighs upon the heart. William Shakespeare, in 1564 to 1616. And here's one. If I were not a physicist, I would probably be a musician. I often think in music. I live my daydreams in music. I see my life in terms of music. Albert Einstein. And from a man who knew a thing or two about rhythm, Beethoven, Bill enjoys this. From the heart, may it again go to the heart. You can read my blog, to be found in sound, at my blog page at my website, www.janetandbeyond.com. Our directions this episode take us many places when we consider sound, music, hearing, and listening, and the relationships between all. They all organize in our minds. So we start there, with tuning our minds, which, when you think about it, is a useful way to think of mind, as an instrument. Here is Mind Tuning from the extensive meditation archive at Interlude, an internet retreat.
Mind tuning. The following is an exploration of how we tune our nervous systems and an encouragement to meditation. The human mind is a tuned instrument. A piano tuner uses tuning forks to strike precise tones and calibrate the keys of the piano to those tones. A guitar player might use a pitch pipe to tune the guitar. If the strings vibrate at the correct frequency, the note played will be predictable, and the result may be music the way the artists want it to sound. Our nervous system attunes to our surroundings. We have the ability to adapt our mental, emotional vibration to our immediate environment without even being aware of it. When we are babies, Mother may rock us and sing lullabies to soothe us. She is helping tune our personal vibration to a calmer, more harmonious melody. Music is powerful based on its ability to affect our nervous system. Martial music is intended to stir us. Nations never pick lullabies as their national anthems. They select music with powerful rhythms and swelling melodies that make us breathe a little deeper and make our hearts beat faster. If If the anthem is working, we may feel a chill or tingle up our spine that says our nervous system is tuned in. At sporting events, fans cheer and chant, and that vibration and emotional energy has a direct effect on the players. The home field advantage is largely based on the crowd's ability to transfer their personal energy and enthusiasm to the minds and bodies of the players. It is particularly observable in basketball, where, in the confined space of an indoor arena, the crowd's emotions clearly affect the team's performance. Of course, the team's play affects the emotions of the crowd, too. People pay a lot of money for the opportunity to have their personal vibrations synchronized with a winning team and thousands of other excited fans. Sports events, concerts, theater, dance, cinema, television, radio, computer games, gambling machines, and even church services are all means for modifying our mental, emotional, physiological states. The computer gamer, for instance, after several hours of struggling to build a civilization or to destroy the forces of evil, will have tuned into the rhythms of the game and to some extent become an extension of the computer. A good game will require total focus of attention. The player will have adrenaline pumping and will be thinking of nothing but the game. After an intense session, the emotional state induced by the game may last for hours, even days. The emotional after effects are likely to be a synthesized feeling of empowerment, alertness, and possibly irritability. The gamer's nervous system is abuzz, as it would be for some people after a night of gambling, a boxing match, a bullfight, or a parachute jump. We seek these activities because they induce in us feelings of being alive, excited, and powerful. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but some of us can become addicted to the feelings. We might also become so used to our habits of mind tuning that we aren't aware that other, more subtle mental states are also available. Meditation is a tool for settling the mind and body into a state of calm awareness. It is an antidote for the buzzy, adrenaline-induced states that are so attractive to the bored. By meditating, we can retune our minds and bodies to their natural vibrations. The erect but relaxed posture, the calm breathing, the downcast eyes, the folded hands, each helps our nervous system to quiet itself. We can calibrate our mind and emotions to the subtler vibrations. In the quiet calm of meditative states, we can perceive our subtle feelings. We can get to know ourselves. Our music, our rhythms, need not be imposed upon us by the world. We can find our own harmony in the quiet moments. This week, pay attention to your mental and emotional states. Observe how they change and notice what you can do to change them. Pay attention to the sensory stimulation to which you expose yourself. What does the sound and visual stimulation do to your nervous system? How do the machines around you affect you? How does the physical environment affect you? How do the people around you affect you? How do you use your body to alter the state of your mind? What media or other experiences do you use to alter your states? Examine the usual state of your mood. Are you usually jumpy, tense, irritable, bored, or maybe sleepy? Practice meditation and notice the effect it has on your mental and emotional states. Do you find yourself calmer, more responsive, more flexible in your responses?
You can contact Bill directly via bill@musiccare.net or at his website, practicalheartskills.com. And on our episode webpage, you will find the correct spelling and each link listed for LinkedIn, YouTube, Your Tango, Facebook, and Twitter. That's Bill Protzmann, spelled Protzmann. If you are ready to learn how to use music as self-care, you can take the guided, gamified, and fully mentored online course at quest.musiccare.net. Thank you for joining me here at Journeys to Enlightenment with Janet. A new episode is released every 2 weeks. Any questions or thoughts or guests you'd like to suggest, you can email me directly at janetandbeyondpodcast@outlook.com. For more information about all the elements that make up each episode, they are on my podcast page at my website, www.janetandbeyond.com. While there, you will also find information about my other podcast show, Conscious Conversations with Joan and Janet, and all about my work with clients. You can sign up to receive my regular weekly blog, Life in the Beyond, Journeys into Enlightenment. If you're looking for other regular opportunities to sit in heart-centered awareness with myself and others, you can join us in my Fuzzy Photons playground groups I offer on Wednesdays. Live interactive space via Zoom video conferencing. You can follow each episode of this podcast series on my YouTube channel, Journeys into Enlightenment with Janet Barrett. Till the next time, notice what feels different right in this moment. It is real, and it can last a lifetime.